this love is for real, you will never let go, never let go. Oh, and it's more than just words, love beyond my control, out of control. This is real love, this is real love. This is real love, this is real love. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is real love, this is real love. In your heart, I'm found. I want you, I want you. You won't let me down. You got me, you got me. Now this love is for real, you will never let go, never let go. Oh, and it's more than just words, love beyond my control, out of control. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is real love, this is real love. Oh. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is real love, this is real love. Oh. Staring into your eyes makes my heart come alive. Suddenly blood's alive when I met you. This is real love, this is real love. This is real love, this is real love. Oh. You're pulling
come out of their grave just for you.
Good morning. Welcome to Discovery. Please join us. Stand, please. Thank you. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom. This world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, He's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. My God's not dead, surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom. This world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, He's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. My God's not dead, surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. My God's not dead, surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. My God's not dead, surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's like a lion, he's like a lion. Oh, he's surely alive, surely alive. Oh, yeah. Fire fall, come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roll and fire fall, come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roll and fire fall, come shake Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues of burn. Praise the mountain fixed upon it, Mount of thy unchanging love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus saw me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger, interposed his precious blood. Hold to grace, how great it is. Daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy grace now like a feather bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Here inside your presence, taken by the wonder of you. Here inside your glory, we give our lives for you. Here inside your presence, taken by the wonder of you. glory. We give our lives fully to you. We cry, holy, holy are you. We cry, holy, holy are you. Sing out your love. Your love, it burns inside. Our hearts are satisfied by you. Your love is our reward. It's why we ask for more of you. We cry, holy, holy are you. Our hearts are burning, burning for you. We cry, holy, holy are you. Our hearts are burning, burning for you. We are your burning one. We are consumed by you. We set our lives apart. We are consumed by you. We are your burning one. We are consumed by you. We set our lives apart. We are consumed by you. So let this love be like a fire. Let my life be like a flame. Fill the souls with your desire. Let our passions bring you fame. So let this love be like a fire. Let my life be like a flame. Fill the souls with your desire. Let our passions bring you fame. We are your burning one. We are consumed by you. We set our lives apart. We are consumed by you. You guys can have a seat. Move into a time of communion this morning. This is how we choose to recognize the sacrifice that Jesus made. How we choose to walk in an awareness that we were struggling in darkness, that we were in a system that was set up against us, in a world that we could never win, that our God loved us enough to send his son to come and to bleed and to die so that we could really live, to come and to rescue us from that system, to break it down and to break it apart, so that we could be covered in grace, so that we could be washed clean, so that no matter what our story looks like, we can stand before our God in this place and receive his love and his mercy. We have a God who gave us this enormous, immeasurable gift. All we have to do is reach out and take it. So every week we come together, we remember the payment. We remember what it cost to give us this freedom. So what's going to happen is some trays are going to go up and down the aisle, a little wafer and a little cup of juice that represent the blood and body of Christ. It was broken for you and that was spilt for you. Take one of each of those and take it on your own time. We're not going to come back up and do it together. But this is a moment for you to remember what was done. And not in a spirit of guilt or condemnation, but in a spirit of thanksgiving and wonder that this grace is poured out upon even us. And if you've never been here with us before, you're going to hear folks shattering those little plastic cups all around the room. And it's this symbol that the system that held us in bondage, the things that held us from God, have been broken and have been shattered, and they cannot be put back together. And if all this is weird and you don't know what I'm talking about and you'd rather not participate, there's no shame in that at all. Just pass it around to the next person. There will be an opportunity later if you have questions, but for now, just keep the tray moving. You are totally safe and welcome to do that here. So let's pray, and then we'll share in that meal together. God, we thank you that you loved each of us enough to pay that price. And God, I know that for a lot of us, myself included, it's incredibly hard to believe that you have this grace for us. That all we have to do is reach out and take it. All we have to do is accept it. All we have to do is walk in it. It costs us nothing. God, there's so many of us who can't wrap our minds around that. So in this moment, God, as we remember what your Son did, as we take the body and the blood, we ask that you just allow us to let it in a little bit. To just accept this grace. Begin to feel what it's like to be truly loved and to stand before our God washed clean. In your name we pray. Amen.
we just thank you for this time. We thank you for all of the grace that you've poured out on us. We ask that you continue to soften us and allow us to accept it and allow us to be changed by it. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay. So, we're going to do a song here in a moment. How many of you like Pink Floyd? You're safe here. We're going to play some Pink Floyd, and I'm actually going to sing it this time, unlike last time. But here's the thing. This is service number 4, and we have gotten to the end of the song one time. So don't, just trying to manage expectations. We might just stop playing. But we are going to do our best. Here we go.
First class traveling set, and I think I need a Learjet.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. Give it up. Woo! Great job. Great job. Woo! So here we are. Nothing like a little Pink Floyd to light up your Sunday morning, right? Hey, so when my wife Stacy and I got married, we were pretty young. We were 20 years old. Young. Let me just go ahead and show you a picture here to help you out. Yeah, check that out. Right, whole lot of sexy going on there. But check out that hair. I mean, whoo! Don't be jealous. There we are. So we were two young, broke college students. But because Stace, my wife, worked really hard in high school, saved some money and so forth, a little bit too. We scraped together a down payment, and we were able to buy this tiny little house down by campus near the University of Louisville, where we both went to school. So go Cards before we say anything else. Our first house payment was $231.48. And some of you are saying, wow, that's like chump change today. That's not a lot of money. Some of you are like, I spend more than that every month at Starbucks or at the local brewery or whatever. And that's true, but it was a lot for us. It felt really, really heavy to us. We were just that broke. Let me give you an example of that. So we had this junky little car. It was a 1978 Honda Civic. I'll throw a picture of it up here. There it is. That wasn't our car. Okay, that is the same car, but that's much better shape than ours was. Now, ours was faded and junky, and the air conditioning didn't work and all that kind of stuff. So we had this car. The battery went out in the first year of our marriage, and we couldn't afford a new one. So luckily, the car was so light that in the morning I'd go out, and I'd push the car down the street. I get running with it, jump in, pop the clutch, start the car, turn around, come back and pick up Stacy, and we would go to college together. It was like that was our routine. We always tried to park on a little bit of an incline wherever we parked so we could just get a little push start there. It worked for about a month. Finally, we could afford a new battery. So we were just that broke. So we get to Christmas, our very first Christmas together, which was 1984. I know, a long, long time ago. We get our first Christmas together, and the problem was that when we were dating, we both had jobs, we had some money, so we'd spend money on each other at Christmas time, but now we're married and we're broke. But it really didn't matter. She bought me a VCR, and if you're like, what's that, right? You kids are like, so ask your mom. All right, so VCR, and I bought her a microwave. Yeah, they used to be a lot bigger and heavier and more expensive. So anyway, I bought her a microwave. Let me just say this, not the best start to our financial future. Not the best way to start off our financial future. And here's why I say that. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the cash, but it didn't matter because we had plastic, we had credit cards, and so we used them. And here's what I want you to know. That first Christmas together as a married couple in 1984 put some things in motion in our lives that would take us years and years and years to undo. It established some habits and some patterns and some problems in our lives that would be long-term problems for us for years to come. And my guess is that most of us can relate to exactly what I'm talking about as I tell that story. My guess is that most of us can in one way or another relate to the lyrics to the Pink Floyd song that Wade and the band just performed. This song called Money. New car, caviar, 4-star daydream. I think I'll buy a football team. And you're probably not thinking of buying a football team, nor do we have the money, but you're thinking about buying something, right? And so there's this other lyric. Then he goes on to say, he says, money, so they say, is the root of all evil today. Wonder where he gets that. He's quoting the Bible. 1 Timothy. I didn't know Pink Floyd were Christians. I still don't know that. But anyway, they quote the Bible, so that's why we do them in church. Hang with me. All right, so anyway, so it's the root of all money today. But you asked me for a rise. It's no surprise that they're giving none away. They're giving none of their money away. Why? Because we can't. Why? Because we continue to buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people that we don't even like. This is the reality. This is the reality of the world that we live in today. I was reading this past week that consumer credit card debt now last year alone rose 9% to $905 billion. In the United States of America. The average household in our country has between $16,000 and $20,000 worth of credit card debt. We're not talking about student loans, car loans, mortgages, anything like that, just credit card debt alone. Our debt problem is getting worse. It is not getting any better. This is true for us as a country, and it's true for most of us individually too. And so all that to say, I get it. Listen, this stuff makes us uncomfortable. We don't really want to talk about this stuff. We're not comfortable talking about this stuff, and that is especially true in this thing that we're sitting in today called church. We're not comfortable talking about this in church. Listen, I get it. I spent many more years sitting in the seats where you are than I have being a pastor of a church. So I understand that, but here's the deal. We have to talk about this stuff. We cannot continue to ignore this stuff. God has a whole lot to say about this stuff that is helpful for all of us. Here's the best part. Even if we don't believe God is real. Even if we don't believe in God himself, he has a lot to say in this book that is really, really going to help us in this area of our lives, in our stories. And so last week we kicked this thing off and we said, we kind of landed the plane with this statement by Jesus. You can't serve God and serve money. Can't serve both. It's impossible to do that. And so we said, here's what we got to do. We got to take a look at our finances, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of our finances, dive in, and we've got to ask a question. And the question is not who do I wish I was serving, not who do I want to serve. The question is, when I look at how I handle and manage my money, who am I really serving? Because see, here's the deal. If we really want to get in the black, stay in the black, or get back into the black, which means there's more money coming in than there is going out, that's where every one of us want to be. Then when we really want to try to start to do that, and we start to take a hard look at where we are and the hard reality of our finances, when we get to the heart of the matter, and what we really see is this. It's really not about want to. It is more about can't. It's not about want to. It's more about can't. That our hands just seem to be tied when it comes to this area of our lives, when it comes to our financial lives. And so the question that we have to ask is there any hope? Is there any hope for us in this mess? And the answer is yes, 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 there is. And so that's what I want us to talk about in the rest of our time that we have left together today. So we're going to be in Luke chapter 12 today. If you brought a Bible and you got it, you want to open it up, that's great. They're on the back tables if you can get there now and that's not too weird, awkward, or uncomfortable for you. If it is, grab one on your way out, take it home with you. You can hit our app, you can hit YouVersion, or you can just ignore all that. And you can read with me on the screens, okay? So Luke 12, beginning with verse 22. But before we jump in and start reading, I want to say this. I want to make sure we say hey and welcome to all of our online friends, new and old, who are watching us right now. And to you, if you're sitting here today for the very first time and you're brand new, we always want you to know you're in a room full of people just like you. You and your story are safe here. And maybe the best part of it all is this. There is a place for you in this place reserved every single week, even if you don't believe that the stuff that we're getting ready to read is actually true. There's a place for you, even if you don't believe this stuff is actually true. That's true every single week. All right, let's do this. So Luke chapter 12, verse 22. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than birds. Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Okay, so let's stop there. Here we go. Okay, so here's what Jesus says. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. God takes care of the birds, and you are more valuable than a bird. Aren't you excited and glad you came through the snow to be here today, right? Here's your encouragement. You're more valuable than a bird, right? And hopefully I got more than that, right? Now let's keep going, all right? So don't worry. Worry accomplishes nothing. When you think about what Jesus does here, he points to two extreme examples. You don't have any food and you don't have any clothes. Now, most of us sitting in this room right now, we're not in that situation. And here's what I want to say before we go any further. If you are, please let us know because we have all kinds of ways that we can come alongside and help you with that. But here's the thing. The truth is that what Jesus says here is extreme. No food and no clothes. But it doesn't matter if it's that extreme or if it's just something else that we need. The principle here is the same. The principle is the same. So let's dial what Jesus is saying here into our lives and stories for just a minute. I want to start that by just having you complete this simple statement. All right? Here it is. When things get tight financially, I blank. I feel like a game show host when I do that. But when things get tight financially, I blank. Now, there's lots of things we could put in that blank, right? Lots of ways to answer that question. I cry. I pick up more hours at work. I take on a second job. I switch jobs so I can make more money. I start driving Uber. I look at what I'm spending and I cut back on what I'm spending. I look at what I'm giving away. I cut back on what I'm giving. I call mom. I call dad. There's lots of ways that we can answer, fill in the blank on that statement. Here's one that some of us feel compelled to give this morning because we're sitting in church, right? I pray. When things get tight financially, I pray. And if you do, that's great. God wants us to do that. It's amazing, okay? And I've heard stories. When we pray, God answers prayers, right? So I've heard financial stories. People are against the rock, between a rock and a hard place financially. They pray, God, please help. And the next day, there's 5 crisp $100 bills on their front porch in their mailbox, something like that. I mean, miracles do happen. But my question for us this morning is this. Have you ever been on the other side of that experience? In other words, have you ever prayed, God, I'm in a bind here financially, and I really could use some help, only to have nothing happen or nothing really change at all? Yeah, me too. And so the question is, what do we do with that? Right? What do we do when we find ourselves in that space? I'll be honest with you. Before I do any of this stuff, before I, lean into a friend or talk to someone who cares about me or look at how I'm spending money and decide I'm going to cut this back or cut that back, before I even pray, do you know what I typically do first? I do exactly what Jesus is telling me I shouldn't do here. I worry. More often than not, I tend to do exactly that. Stacy and I moved here August of 2008. And so we moved here. When we moved here, I was concerned about where it would leave our family financially. We got a family of 6. I have 4 daughters. I had 2 in high school at the time. One was getting ready to be a junior. One was getting ready to be a sophomore. And girls are expensive. Kids are expensive, but girls are expensive. So I'm worried, how are we going to do this? The church was really small, less than 100 people. It was really struggling, and they couldn't pay a lot. We knew that, and we understood that. What we didn't know was that our house in North Carolina that we were trying our hardest to sell was not going to sell. Beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood, great price, made no sense, but it wasn't going to sell. So we moved here not knowing, and so we started doing what some of you have done this before. It's pretty painful. We paid rent here on the house we were living in, and we made payments on the house in North Carolina. First month, it didn't sell. No big deal. It's just a month. Second month, it didn't sell. Third month, it didn't sell. And so I started to watch as our savings, this money we had saved, started going boop, boop, boom, boom, as we made these house payments. And so every month, the savings dwindled a little bit. So as the savings went down, my worry started to go up. It has an inverse relationship. Maybe you can relate to that. After about 18 months of making double payments, rent here and payments there, we ran out of money. And we entered into this thing that we were trying our hardest to avoid, this nasty thing called foreclosure. And it just, that would be the hard reality of our lives for years and years to come. Now, I want to tell you something about this 18-month period in our lives and in our story. I was praying hard. I was praying really, really hard. In fact, church was really small at the time, less than 100 people. And so we all got together over at our old building over at Powers and Barnes. And I remember we sat in a big circle. We just took chairs and sat in a circle in the kids area over there. And we just prayed. We went around the circle and everybody prayed, God, please sell this house. Please sell this house. Please sell this house. Nothing happened. So I'm praying really hard. Money's going down. Worry's going up. But as long as there was money, so I'm sitting here and I had an out because I'd make a payment. I'd take some money, make a payment, and then my worry would settle down for about 2 weeks until the house didn't sell again. The next payment's coming due. And so you get that, right? I mean, it was great. Everything worked out until I ran out of money. And then now what? So let me give you a little backstory. Stacy and I, years ago, like 1999, 2000-ish, we were leaving. I was leaving the practice of law, been an attorney for 10 years, going into ministry. But we had just taken Dave Ramsey's stuff, Financial Peace stuff. It's amazing. Our life had changed. We paid off all of our debt except our house. That was one of the reasons that we were able to go into ministry and make that change. Was that. And so all that to say, Dave Ramsey's amazing. His stuff's amazing. I knew that. I knew all of the principles. It had worked in my life. And so even though I knew what I was getting ready to do was a huge mistake, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. You know why? Because when the worry gets to be high enough, it doesn't matter what we know. It doesn't matter what we know. And so it doesn't matter what I know. What did I do? When the money ran out, I turned to the next best thing, plastic credit cards. And I started to charge everything that they would let me charge in our life. Every expense that we had. Car insurance, can I put it on a credit card? Whatever it was, boom, I did it. Why did I do that? I was trying to slow down the bleeding. I was trying to turn down the volume on this intense worry that I was feeling in my life. And so you do that for a while, and here's what happened to us. I look up, our financial world is a mess. It's the biggest mess it's ever been in. It would take us 7+ years to recover from that mess. So what's the point? The point is this, this thing that I was using to temporarily medicate my worry ultimately led to much bigger, larger, long-term problems for us. You see, here's the deal. God knows this stuff. He knows this stuff, and He tries His best to help us with this stuff. He tells us this stuff. He says, please, please, please let me help you with this. And the beauty of it is you don't even have to believe in God to benefit from what He says. Most of the time. And like this, check this out. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. He says this, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. Now, a few weeks ago, we mentioned how Apostle Paul said, I'm going to be a slave to everyone. We said, nope, don't want to sign up for that. None of us wants to be slaves. None of us want to be slaves, but here's what we got to understand. Here's the trick. Here's the trap. Things get tight financially. We worry. Debt medicates worry, and we become slaves. There it is. And so I got to ask this question. Who, what, or where do you turn when things get tight financially in your life? Where do you go with that? Is God on the list? Where's God on the list? Is God even on that list? Just great questions for us to think about as we walk into what Jesus is walking us into here. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 27. So we've been talking about birds. Now we're going to talk about flowers. Consider how the wild flowers grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, God's kingdom, and all these things will be given to you as well. Okay, let's step into this a little further. Let's zoom into what Jesus is actually saying here. In this paragraph, we can summarize it this way. Jesus is saying, live your life differently than the pagans do. Live your life differently than the pagans do. Now let's pause here for just a second. Please don't call your unchurched friends pagans. It's just not kind, right? I don't like that word. You know, ethnos is the Greek word for that, which means different kind of people, right? In this day, they weren't Jewish people. They worshiped a different God, all that thing, Gentiles, whatever you want to call them. I just don't like the word. But what Jesus is getting to here is people who follow me ought to live their lives differently than people who don't. All right, so he's talking about not only trusting God for the bare necessities of life. Jesus throws it down here. The last statement we just read says this. I want you to trust God. I want you to trust God. Put his kingdom first. I want you to trust God with everything in your life. In the context of what we're talking about today, let's dial it in this way. Here's the question. Do we really trust God enough to put him first in our financial lives? Do we really trust God enough to put him first in our financial lives? Because last time I checked, pagans don't do that. And that's the question. And here's the deal. I know your heart. You want to. If you love Jesus, you're a follower of Jesus, you want to. I want to. We want to. That's not the problem. This is a tough question because the sad reality of our world is this. It's not about want to. It's more about can't. It's not about want to, it's more about can't. We want God to be first in everything. If we love God and we love Jesus, we want God to be first in everything, every area of our lives. We want God to be first in our financial lives too. The problem is that we look at the reality of our bank accounts, of our money, and all those red numbers. It's like, it's such a mess. And we just come to this conclusion. I really want to, I just can't. Why? Because most of the time, we look at the reality of our lives. And we have become slaves to this thing called debt. Just look at this. Watch what just happened. This thing that we used to temporarily medicate our worry has now become an even greater source of worry for us. It's a trap. It's a trap. Dave Ramsey, he's brilliant on this stuff. He's a genius. He says this. He describes our financial lives, most of our financial lives this way. He says we live a lay-awake life. So we live a lay-awake life, right? We lay awake at night, and we worry and stress out about the reality of our financial lives. It's the world that we live in. So let's go back another year, back in time. So I'm going to go back to the Christmas of 1983. This is the year before Stacey and I got married. We got married in August of 84. And so heading in, this was the Christmas I gave her the engagement ring. And so, I didn't have a lot of money, but we gave her an engagement ring. I actually paid cash for that, so you'd be good, proud of me there. But gave her an engagement ring. But I wanted to buy my dad, this Christmas, a .22 rifle. It was just really big on my heart. My dad was a country boy in the sticks of Kentucky, and he grew up, and he'd tell me stories about when he had his first car. He would drive through the country. He delivered groceries and worked for a grocery store, and he kept a .22 rifle behind the seat, and he would just stop along the road and shoot things. And I'm like, how great is that? You get arrested for that now, right? My dad grew up in this. You could probably still do it in the sticks of Kentucky, but you get the point. So my dad talked about having this rifle. I want to get my dad a rifle. So I go to the store. I find the rifle that I want to buy him, and I put it on layaway. Anybody remember that? I put it on layaway, so I didn't have the money to buy it. I want to buy this. I don't have the money, so I gave him a little bit of money, and then I came back and I made payments. I know this sounds weird. All right, so I made payments on it, finally paid it off. They gave it to me. It's Christmas time. I gave it to my dad. It was great. See, layaway, this is the way that we used to roll, right? But now it seems stupid, right? Because, why would you wait? right? Just give them a card. You can have it now. Yay, you know. But there's something about this layaway thing that I think we've kind of lost. Because with layaway, when they hand it to you, it's yours free and clear. You've not paid $1 in interest. You've just paid what it cost you. And then when they hand it to you, guess what? It's brand new, still in the box. There's something about that. You know, several years ago, I went to Uganda with a couple buddies of mine, and we were visiting Musana, our partner over in Uganda. They're doing amazing things in these villages over there, and just the way they're providing for people and development and all this stuff. So anyway, we go, and so we're driving around these different villages in Uganda, and I keep seeing these houses that look like they're falling down. They're like 20%, 30%, 40% of a house sitting there, bricks falling, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this kind of looks like a war zone. What's going on? These people just abandon their houses and let them collapse. And so finally, I saw so many, I was like, hey, I got to ask the question. So I asked Andrea and Hareel, our partners over there, I said, hey, guys, I said, what's up with these houses? Everybody walking off and just leaving their houses? They're like, no, those are new houses. I was like, new houses? I'm like, well, why didn't anybody finish those houses? If they're new, they don't look new. They look abandoned. And they go, well, you know, so mortgages in Uganda are 20+% if you can get one. So nobody does it. You know what they do? As they get money, they go build on their house. So as I get a little bit of cash, I spend it on bricks, I go build my house up. And then I wait till I have more money, and then I build a little bit more, and then I build a little bit more. And then finally, I finish it. And guess what? When I finish it, it belongs to me. I'm not a slave to anyone. There's something to this. See, because under our better system that we have, by the time we pay it off, I mean, come on, it's rusty, it's broken, it's worn out. Sometimes we don't even know where it is, right? It's like, I think we sold it in the yard sale, or maybe it's in the basement. You know, we don't even know where it is. We've traded in a layaway life for a lay-awake life. We live in a lay-awake world. Andrew and Charity Fisk, young couple, great friends of ours. They're also mission partners of ours, too. They're in Kazakhstan. They just moved there in the past year with their beautiful little daughter, Avenel, and they're with YWAM, and they're doing a giant aquaponics project over in Kazakhstan to help the people in that country sustain themselves, but also as a training center for people all over the world to come in and learn how to sustain themselves, learn sustainability. This is a system that will help you sustain yourself. And so it's amazing. I tell you, there aren't many people in this world that I admire and respect more than Andrew and Charity Fisk, and that's always been true since I've known them. When I got to Discovery, Charity was a young single girl already here in the church, and then they got married shortly after that. And I remember when they first got married, you talk about humble beginnings. I remember telling them how excited I was for them, what God's going to do in them and through them and for them because of the way they lived their lives. When they got married, they lived on the YWAM campus over on Garden of the Gods. They basically lived in a converted hotel room. It was tiny. Andrew built this loft thing so he could put a mattress on top. So they slept up in the air on top of this loft, the mattress, so they had some room for a little bit of furniture and stuff underneath it. That's how tiny the place was. They've always been like that. From day one in their relationship, God always came first. God's kingdom came first, and you knew that. If they didn't have cash, they just didn't buy it. And so when I've watched them, the way they sacrifice, the way they do without, the way that they always wait, and they're patient, and God's kingdom in this larger story always comes first. I am so, so proud of this young couple, of Andrew and Charity Fisk. But I can't help, as I think about them, I can't help but contrast them with where Stacy and I started out. Christmas 1984. And the things that we bought for each other that Christmas were not bad things. But can I tell you something? They led us down a very bad road. A road to debt. A road that would cause us many times in our lives to look up and look at the financial reality of our lives and go, you know what? Putting God first financially in our lives just doesn't seem to be a possible solution for us. I mean, we really, really want to. We really, really want to, but when we looked at the reality of our financial life, we just can't. We just can't. When we hit rock bottom 8 years ago with the foreclosure, you can imagine how big a mess things were. So I got on the phone. I talked with every one of our credit card companies. And I said, hey, can we negotiate? I don't want to pay you less. I want to pay you every dollar that I owe you, but it's going to take me some time. Can we reduce the rate and fix it? Let's set a fixed rate for a fixed term, and let's just make this like a term loan. And so we did that, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was, stretch it out. It was thousands of dollars. So it was like, we got to work on this. And so it took us several years to really attack that. And every time we'd pay off one, we'd take the money we were paying on that one and flip it over here and add it to the money we were paying on this one and attack the next one. That's the Dave Ramsey plan. It really, really does work. And so, we're methodical. We're just doing this thing along the way. But it was hard for us because our financial reality all of a sudden was this: you either have cash or you have a debit card, which if there's no money in the account doesn't work, or you don't buy it at all. We're 25 years into marriage at the time, and we had never been really in that space. And so it was difficult for us. And so in the midst of that tension, there was this money sitting over here every month. 10%, right off the top, gross income, sitting right here that we had committed to monthly give to the church. So every single month, it's like, man, if that would pay off debt a lot faster. That would buy clothes every single month. It was such a temptation. This money, it was our second biggest nut. I mean, other than our rent, it was the second biggest thing. It was so tempting for us. And I'm not proud of this moment, but there was a month where I caved. It was December of 2009, so it's our second Christmas in Colorado. We're heading towards Christmas, but now the credit cards are maxed out, the savings is completely gone, and we're living paycheck to paycheck, barely making it. And we're heading into Christmas, and I'm looking at my girls. I'm going, my daughters have never, ever, ever, ever gone without Christmas. So in the fear and worry of that as a dad, I'm looking at it, and I really wanted to give it to the church. I really wanted to give it to church. That's my heart. I mean, I know, and God's blessed our lives because of this. I know this is the right thing to do. I want to give this to the church, but I looked into the eyes of my girls. I had the thought of them missing out on Christmas, and I said, you know what? I just can't. Boom. And I did it. I took the money, and I spent every dollar on it to make sure every dollar of it to make sure our girls had Christmas. See, it's not about want to. We really, really want to, but we look at the harsh reality sometimes of our financial world and we go, you know what? I just can't. And so here's my question. What can we begin to change? What can we begin to change up in our financial world so that we can? I mean, are we supposed to just wait until we get the financial picture just, as pretty as can be and get it all cleaned up and get a budget in place to start giving? Is that what we're supposed to do? Answer is no. So where does God fall in this financial recovery plan and me getting out of debt? That's a great question. See, the question is not, do we answer yes to the question, is God and God's kingdom first in my life? The question is not, do you answer yes to that question? The question that we have to ask ourselves, and it's an uncomfortable one, is this: what does my bank account really say? What does my bank account really say? This past Tuesday, I woke up about 5 a.m. and I looked at my phone on the nightstand, and I saw I had a text message from my buddy Morgan over at Ransomed Heart. I'm like, dude, what is your problem? Texting me at 5 a.m. And so I picked up my phone and I started to read what he had sent me. I want to read it to you. And he sent this like 4:30 in the morning. He said, buddy, I'm experiencing the Father's heart for you this morning. I'm like, good. Morgan does this from time to time with me. Say, man, I was talking to God this morning. He brought you up, and here's what he gave me. His pleasure of you. He wants you to know he's pleased with you. And I'm like, oh, this is so good. I want him to be pleased with me. I'm working hard to lead this thing the best I can and be the husband and father I can, the friend I'm supposed to be, and all that. It's so good. He's pleased with me. Yes, I want to soak in that. And his portion being promised to you, his blessing being promised on me, I'm like, yes, I'm sitting in that. And his deepening infuriation for him to be your prize. And I stand with you, agreeing with what God can do through your strong and loving and consented leadership. And I'm like, yes. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And I went back, his deepening infuriation for him to be my prize? I'm like, I don't need this kind of message at 5 o'clock in the morning. God is deeply infuriated with me because he's not my go-to. He's not my first choice. He's not my prize. I mean, I just started stewing in that a little bit. I'm like, dude, really? And so you know what I did? I just sent him quick little cute emoji back. Just a hand, sign language, one finger salute. You've seen it, right? Then I flipped over and went back to sleep. That's not true. Thought about it, wanted to, didn't, okay? Hey, I needed to hear what Morgan had to say here. It was spot on, because here's the deal. You know what I do when I worry? I turn to lots of stuff and lots of people. And I wish I could stand up here today in front of you and say, God's always my first choice. But it's not true. What Morgan said is true. I get it. I wish I could stand up before you and say, you know what? Every single time, God's my first choice. That's true. That's not true. He wants to be first. God so wants to be first in every area of my life, with everything in my life. Turn to me, Greg. Turn to me, Greg. He wants to be first. with my time and my talent and with my money, with my debt, with the reality, the harsh reality of how ugly my financial mess is, God is like this. Hey, invite me into the midst of that, put me first, and watch what happens. Because in the end, you know what happened? Stacy and I got out of our financial mess much quicker than we ever thought would possible. Now, don't hear me wrong. It still took years. But do you know why I think that happened? It wasn't because of some grand financial strategy. It was because of, with the exception of the month, December of 2009 that I described to you, God always came first. And we could have taken the money and put it over here and paid off our debt more quickly. We could have taken the money and built an emergency fund. We could have taken the money and done all kinds of other things with it, but we held on and we didn't. It's what Jesus is pointing us to here. Jesus says, put God and his kingdom first, even with your money and finances and everything else in your life. It's going to take care of itself. So the question is, are we really doing this? Are we really doing this? All right, Jesus got a couple more verses, and then we'll get out of here. Verse 32, do not be afraid, little flock, for the Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give it to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will not fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. And then here's the verse. Last week we left off, we landed the plane. Hey, you can't serve God and serve money. Can't do both, won't work. Here's where Jesus leaves us today. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And Jesus says, be generous. Be generous, be generous. Sell your stuff. Give it to the poor. Give it, give it, give it, give it. Why does he say that? Because there's no way around this statement. Our hearts will always follow our money. And the real indicator of where our hearts is not what we say. And it's not what we believe. And it's not what we say we believe. And it's not what we read or quote, and it's not what we sing or what we pray or what we preach. The real indicator, you want to know where your heart is? Jesus says, here's where you find the answer. It's found in the red or black of your bank accounts. And so I need to repeat this. I said it last week, but you need to hear it again. Jesus is not trying to get our money. Jesus is trying to make sure that our money doesn't get us. He's trying to make sure that our money, my money and your money, doesn't get the one and only thing that he cares about in the entire world. You want to know what it is? It's our hearts. So one last question, hard question before we get out of here today. What does my use of treasure, say about my heart? What does my use of money say about my heart? If this stuff is true, what does my use of money say about my heart? Do you know why I am so concerned that over half the people that come to this place every week call DCC their church home? Do you know why I'm so concerned that they give nothing at all? Zero. Now, I don't know what anybody in this church gives other than my family. I don't want to know, right? But I know this, at least half, it's a higher number than that, of the people who come here and call this their church, they give nothing at all. You know why that concerns me so much? You're like, yeah, because we can't pay the bills. You know, I'm going to be honest about that. I worry about that. See, I trust God. I'm learning to lean into God more with this stuff than I ever have before, but I worry more than I should about that. In fact, I've had more sleepless nights this year over our lack of giving in this church than I ever have before. So it's true. Yeah, I worry about that. But you know, I want to tell you what I worry more about. You know what I worry more about? I worry more about what Jesus is saying here, that our hearts follow our money. Because here's the deal. We say we love God, and we say God is first, and we say God's kingdom is first, and we say what he wants for our lives matters more than anything else. But here's the truth. Our bank accounts suggest otherwise. And Jesus says, he says, I am going to build my church. I am going to build my church, and the gates of hell are not going to stop it. Nothing's going to stop Jesus building his church. So when I don't give to the church, you don't give to the church, I don't give to the kingdom, you don't give to the kingdom, it's not going to stop it. See, this is not about God's kingdom missing out on something. It's about you and me missing out on something. Jesus says you keep looking at your money and you keep concluding, look, it's simple, I can't afford to give. And what Jesus is trying to help us see here is simply this. We can't afford not to give. And it doesn't matter if I stand up here and do this till I'm blue in the face week after week after week. Do a sermon series on money every single year. Yep, we do that. See, the best and most persuasive argument in the entire world is never going to convince you. I know that's true. It's never going to convince you. It doesn't matter that the Bible, there's more verses in the Bible on this topic than there is any other subject. It doesn't matter that Jesus talks more about this than he does anything else. It doesn't matter how much we read those verses and memorize those verses and quote those verses. The only thing, can I just tell you this? I love you, I got to tell you. The only thing is going to help you and me break out of this stronghold that the enemy has established in this area in each of our lives. The only thing that's going to help us break out is to make some changes and begin to try it. So I want to challenge you today to do that. I want you to try it. Do you need to sign up for Financial Peace University? Starts today at 2 o'clock. Yeah, you do. Info booth or garage right after the service. They can help you with that. That's a great way, but you don't have to do that to try it. Listen, here's all you need to do. Pick a number. Pick a number, $10, $20, $30, 1%, 3%, 7%. I don't care. Just pick a number, okay? And listen, I understand when you do this, yeah, Starbucks and Dutch Brothers are going to be sad, and all that, but God's going to come first. They'll be okay. Trust me on this, okay? It's not a budget issue. This is a heart issue. So you're going to pick this number, and then you're going to set it, and you're going to do it for 3 to 6 months. Not 3 to 6 days, 3 to 6 months. Why? Because just think about it. I mean, we don't decide, look, I'm going to start working out. So you go to the gym for a week, 3 days, and then you go home, you take your shirt off, and you look in the mirror. It's like, yeah, nothing's really changed. I'm out. You don't do that. You don't say, I'm going to save money, and so you save for a week. And then you look at the end of the week, how much is here? Oh, I was kind of hoping it'd be more than that. I'm out. No, you don't do that. Why? Because you know that real change takes time. And here's what you got to understand. Real change takes time when it comes to this heart stuff that we talk about in this place every single week, and it especially takes a lot of time when it comes to the hold that our money has on our hearts. And so here's the deal. I don't have permission to do this. I did not ask for permission. I probably should have. I'm going to ask for forgiveness, okay? Here's the deal. I dare you to do this. I dare you to trust God with your money for 3 to 6 months. To pick this number and set it as a recurring gift for 3 to 6 months. Don't touch it. And here's the deal. If you have not seen God show up in your life in some way, in your financial life in some way, all you got to do is send us a message, and I promise you, we will refund every dollar of record that you've given to this place over this period of time. Every penny of it. Why would I put my job on the line and say that? Because I believe this stuff is true. This is not a budget issue. This is a heart issue. Listen, I don't know why God drew this thing up this way, but I know this to be true. When you give to the church, when you give to God's mission, when you give to the kingdom, that gift is always directly connected to you experiencing every bit of the life that God has for you. I've seen it in my own life time and time again. When you give to God's kingdom and God's church and God's mission moving forward, every time you do that, it is directly connected to you experiencing every bit of the life that God came, or Jesus came to bring you. You can't disconnect the two. And if you think about it, you experiencing every bit of the life that God has for you, that's all we're about. Every single week, for every single person that walks into this place. That's why we are talking about this stuff. Be fair to yourself. You owe it to yourself to try this before you conclude that this stuff, it isn't true. Let me pray for us. Jesus, tough stuff, Jesus. You came to bring us life. Every one of us want every bit of the life that you came to bring us. You say it's life to the fullest. It's amazing and it's abundant. And yet there's things standing in the way. And there's fear. Honestly, Jesus, even as I stand up here today, there's fear in all of our lives when we think about what we would have to give up. Because if we put you first financially, that means that this company is going to start calling. Or this is going to happen. Or we're going to have to do without this. Or do without that. Or my kids are going to have to do without. Or whatever. And so there's fear. So Jesus, I just pray over every heart. There's so much hope in what you're pointing us to here. But it's hard. So would you give us the courage to take steps into this with you? It doesn't have to be a lot, just something. Just to walk into this. It doesn't matter the greatest of sermons. It doesn't matter how many verses we've read, Jesus. It's not until we try it that we're going to experience the freedom that you came to bring us, even in this area of our life where so many of us feel anything but free. So Jesus, I pray more hope over every heart as we walk out of here today than we walked in here with. Jesus, come and show us what we need to see. Lead us where we need to go. Walk us by the hand through it. Lead us to the life to the fullest thing that you came to bring us, Jesus. That's our prayer. In your name, amen. Hey, thanks for being here today. Hang with me just a second here. I want to talk about next week. So next week, John Eldredge, he's world-renowned author, New York Times best-selling author. He's a personal friend. He's a friend of DCC. The Ransomed Heart message is the Jesus is the cornerstone of our church, but it's the foundation of how we grow people in this church. He's going to be here next weekend. All right? All 4 services speaking. Please invite everybody you know. We're going to have friends from other churches and stuff come because they love John. This is a real privilege for us. John does not do this. Typically, he doesn't speak. He spoke here like 5 years ago. He's coming back. There aren't many churches that get this privilege. So, hey, let's take advantage of this. Come back and invite your friends. If you want to know about DCC, more about this, getting connected, next steps, all that, go out the doors, look left, and there's a room called The Garage. Great people there to talk with you. If you want to know more about financial peace, info booth between the doors or the garage, that's your place to go. If you want prayer, under the screens to my right and my left, right after I say see you next week, there'll be people there to meet you, talk with you, and pray with you. Hey, and if you want to partner up with us financially, we hang boxes on the wall. We don't pass anything. But if you want to be an owner in this place with us, take some ownership with us and not just an attender, there's an opportunity to do that on your way out. Or you can hit our app or our web version if you're an electronic type of person. Hey, great having you here today. Be careful. I don't know what the roads are like, but thanks for braving some weather today to be here. And we really hope we see you back again here next week. Have a great week.